Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. This is the regular monthly board meeting of the Alameda County Water District. And we welcome all of you here. It's nice to have members of the public with us tonight. Would the secretary please take the roll for us?
Yes, Directors Gunther,
Here.
Akbari,
Here.
Huang, here, Weed,
Here.
and Sethy.
Here. And may I ask Director Huang to help lead us in the salute to the flag, please?
United States of America. Republic, which stands.
So at this time, we will welcome public comments. And just to be clear, members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. A 5-minute limit is customary. However, I, as board president, may adjust the actual time allotted to accommodate the number of speakers. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so. So at this time, we would welcome any members of the public who wish to speak on an item not on the agenda.
Honorable Board of Directors, President, and General Manager, and respected staff. My name is Keval Singh, and the ex-chairman of the Shri Guru Das Sabha Committee in Bay Area. It's a community temple. We are building a community temple in Union City, 31252 VG Street. We are all here to have a humble request that we got the invoice for the water line, fire water line, and it cost totally about is $160,759, which is almost close to going to be 200,000. We are already under funding. We are trying to collect the donation so that we can complete our project. So we almost have 500 families here. This new temple, can also say Sikhism temple and Shri Guru Das Maharaj temple, which is one of the priests sent by God over here, like Jesus Christ. That was in our community. My community was very poor back home. We were like underestimated over there too, but by grace of God, we are here, almost 500 families, and we are working hard so that the future generation not going to wrong direction, they can go to the temple and pray, and also other community activity in the future. So please, will work out with us, whatever you guys can, please do it. Whatever in terms of reducing the cost. So we are here to request you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Hopefully somebody from staff will follow up.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for the comment, and thank you all for coming down. Just briefly, we are aware of your concern. We are working on the estimate that's been prepared. Just for the board's information, this is some what we call customer job work. We prepare an estimate for a deposit upfront. That's what Mr. Singh's referring to. So we're taking another look at that to see if there are things we can do to streamline the estimate. It'll still be an actual cost project in the end, but we are looking at ways of seeing if we can streamline that a bit. And so we'll be back in touch with you all.
I'll just make a short comment. to my fellow citizens here that periodically we do kind of a competitive comparison around cities of the Bay Area on development costs, and Union Sanitary District does the same thing. And I think you would be surprised that on the water end, we are close to the bottom of the Bay Area in terms of connection costs. You just go over to Pleasanton, it's about triple or more. And we have those comparisons available for you if you wish to ask staff for it. The primary cost in such a development, as you're speaking about, is really for fire protection of the facilities. And that requires a different type of connection and pressure to the system to ensure that your property is actually safeguarded. And so I would ask you to take that into consideration, and I wish you the best of success on the project. Are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward to speak?
And if we're looking in the room here currently, and again, this is related to items that are not already on the agenda for those folks who are here to talk about the rates, the water rate process and the proposed rates. There'll be an item shortly coming up for that.
So I see there's one member of the public who would like to speak. Is this on an item not on the agenda?
Yeah, I see Wendy H. with their hand up. I'll just note quickly while we're working on unmuting. For those folks who are participating remotely, please note that the meeting agenda, the staff reports, the presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. And you can reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if you're participating by telephone audio.
Did Wendy H. wish to speak on a subject not on the agenda?
Yes, I would like to just first and say that please keep in mind, our national debt is $31.46 trillion. And if you count every single person in this country has to pay for it, that is more than $90,000 that each person would have to pay. So I would really $93,927 that each person, this is like a loan that each person has to pay. So every time you think about increasing rates, I hope you keep that in mind. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments on items, again, not on the agenda? I'm not seeing any. None from the audience either, so we'll close the public comments. We'll move on to the consent calendar. At the recommendation of staff, we're being asked to add items 5.1 through 5.6 on the action calendar. Would somebody like to make a motion, please?
I'll make the motion to add items 5.1 through 5.6 to the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Secretary, please take the roll.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang. Aye. Weed
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. And would somebody like to make a motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang. Aye. Weed
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. So at this time, we're going to move to item 5.7 on the agenda, which is our public hearing to consider revisions to the district's water rates and adoption of a resolution amending the district's rate and fee schedule regarding water-related rates and charges, including drought surcharges and private fire service rates. Also consider the customer assistance program, facilities connection charges, and miscellaneous fees and charges, and finding that the amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And I'll turn it over to the general manager for some guidance here and how we move forward. I do have my own legal script that I need to read if you want me to proceed with it?
Yeah, I think you can go ahead and proceed.
Okay. So forgive me here. I must read this because our California legislature demands it. So stick with me here. So on behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public's participation in this evening's public hearing. This public hearing will be on the proposed revisions to the district's water rates and the consideration of resolutions amending the district's rate and fee schedule regarding water-related rates and charges, including drought surcharges and private fire service rates, the customer assistance program that we call Help on Tap, facilities connection charges and miscellaneous fees and charges, and finding that these amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Now I'd like to review the ground rules for the public hearing. For the process, I will open up the public hearing and ACWD staff will make a presentation. The presentation materials can be viewed through the online meeting or can be accessed on the district's website with the agenda and materials for this meeting at www.acwd.org. Copies are also available on the table in the back of the boardroom. Upon conclusion of the presentation, the board and ACWD staff will receive public comments and protests. The board and staff will receive all comments without responding. Upon conclusion of the public comments and or protests, the board will request input from the staff as appropriate to respond to questions and comments that were raised by the public, deliberate on the issues, and then close the public hearing. So customarily, we give people up to 5 minutes to speak, but if there's more than a number of people, we may limit it to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any speaker submittal cards? One, okay. And from the members of the public that are listening in, do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this topic? Okay. Let me see here. Okay. All right. So I'll check back with members of the public. Why don't we first give people in our audience, anyone who wishes to come forward and speak, please do. State your name, address. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, okay. I've got the smarter gentleman right next to me. So we'll keep comments to 5 minutes instead of 3. And we'll go through the staff presentation first, which is a little bit lengthy. I hope you will find it entertaining. Okay. So Mr. Wunderlich, is this yours?
Well, actually, I have a couple of remarks
Okay.
to make here before we staff starts our presentation. Just a note about how we've advertised and published notice about this meeting. Some of that notice has been required by law, and we've met those requirements. In addition to the required notice, in accordance with Proposition 218, the district published a notice of the proposed water rates and charges on this public hearing in the Argus on January 27th. And again on February 13th. A notice was also published in the Tri-City Voice on January 24th and January 31st. Notice and additional information were posted on the district's website and via multiple social media posts, and community information meetings were held on January 19th and January 26th. The Proposition 218 notice, which was previously referenced, included details of the rates proposal and instructions for submitting written protests. This notice was mailed to every property owner, every ACWD customers, and all other mailing addresses within the district service area in late December. Finally, a separate notice providing details of the previously approved changes to the facilities connection charges with adjustments for inflation based on the Engineering News Records cost index for San Francisco Bay, and the final phase-in of the equity buy-in component for that development fee was mailed January 3rd to the cities of Fremont, Newark, and Union City, and to developers, engineers, builders, and subdividers that are involved in ongoing planned or potential developments within the district's service area. So I'll now ask John Wunderlich, ACWD's Director of Finance and Administration, to lead us through the staff presentation covering what the board will be considering for adoption this evening. Because this is a formal public meeting, we ask that members of the public refrain from asking questions during the presentation, as there will be ample opportunity to ask questions and provide comments following staff's presentation. All right, Mr. Wunderlich.
And just for the record, the public hearing has officially been opened.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stevenson, members of the board, staff, and public. We're going to go ahead and we'll try to move somewhat expeditiously through the presentation so we can get to your comments and questions. But we hope that it's informative and does perhaps answer a number of the questions you came with this evening. So we'll talk just, briefly about the district and why we're proposing a rate increase, and then kind of run through some of our financial details and the specifics of the proposed rates. Next slide. All right, so a little bit about ACWD. We were founded over 100 years ago. As a public agency, we do not make a profit. We only charge rates based on the cost of service. And if for any reason we do take in funds above the cost of service, those are retained to essentially reduce future rate increases. So they're retained on behalf of the customer. We serve approximately 345,000 people in the Tri-City area through 87,000 service connections. Next slide. We get water from three primary sources. Approximately 40% of our water comes from the State Water Project. That water is imported mostly from Lake Oroville and comes through the Delta. We receive another 40% of our water supply locally. That's water through the Alameda Creek watershed. It's diverted into Quarry Lakes to recharge the groundwater basin here locally. And then our last source of supply, approximately 20%, comes from the San Francisco Regional Water System, also imported water mostly from Hetch Hetchy Reservoir in Yosemite. Next slide. So just a little bit more of some of the administrative details with this public hearing, as Mr. Stevenson mentioned. Back in December, the board took action to set this evening as the date and time of a public hearing to consider a rate proposal and authorize staff to mail out those rate notifications, which went to all customers, property owners, and all other mailing addresses in the service area. We've performed a number of additional outreach efforts, including 2 community meetings, which covered much of the same information as we'll cover this evening, and those were held back in January. Next slide. As far as our rate setting process, we held 4 public financial workshops during the 2022 calendar year from May through September. As a part of that process, we look at our long-range expenditure forecasts. We make projections about our water demands and what our revenues look like without any rate increases. And then based on that, we calculate the rates needed to meet our long-range cost of providing water service to the Tri-City community. As a part of that process, we also evaluate a number of issues, including drought surcharges, different ways to structure our rates, and then kind of the outcome is the proposal that's will be reviewed this evening. Next slide. Great. So obviously we're frequently asked, why are rate increases necessary? The situation is that the district is not immune to the inflationary forces that are increasing prices for just about every good and service. We face increasing labor costs based on our bargain union contracts. We're spending money on capital projects to fund water supply and quality initiatives, as well as enhancing reliability to our distribution system. The construction cost index in this region went up nearly 14% year over year. And so we are finding that these projects are more and more expensive. We also have increasing water for our water purchases, particularly from the San Francisco Regional Water System. And of course, we need to maintain our financial resiliency and sufficiency to maintain adequate reserves and our credit rating. Next slide. Some of the big projects we have going on right now, funded by rate dollars. We're installing advanced metering infrastructure that will provide customers with more tools about their water use. We have our ongoing main renewal and seismic upgrade program, which is replacing pipes, tanks, and other facilities within the water system so that they'll be more reliable and be able to withstand seismic activity. And we're also in the initial phases of a new water treatment project to address emerging contaminants of concern. Next slide. In terms of water supply reliability, we're working with 7 other water agencies within the Bay Area and Central Valley to expand the Los Vaqueros Reservoir, which is in Contra Costa County, to provide, we could go to the next slide, please, which will provide additional resiliency for our water system when it relates to importing water from the Delta, as well as enhance our ability to store water from the Delta when it's in surplus, as we've recently experienced with some of the significant storms. Next slide. And then some of the things that we're doing to try to manage and control our costs. We have those 3 sources of water supply. We always try to manage those as tightly as we can to maximize our use of lowest cost water. Within the past year, we refinanced existing long-term bonded debt to save money. And we try to partner with other agencies where we can, for example, if we can align a pipe renewal project with the same time as other projects in a certain area, it can save both money and convenience for the community to reduce how much the overlaying road needs to be ripped up and replaced. We're also engaged in some new initiatives. We're installing solar facilities to try to reduce our long-term power costs, and also transitioning our vehicle fleet to a leasing program rather than owning to save long-term costs. We also are always looking for grant opportunities. And over the last 3 years, we've received nearly $24 million in state, federal, and other grants to help fund critical infrastructure projects. And we do expect to receive nearly $10 million between this year and then the next couple of years to continue to support our capital program. All right, next slide. I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Sidney Aum. He's our financial analysis supervisor, and he's going to provide the bulk of the presentation this evening and review our financial plan and the details of the rates proposal.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wanderling. Good evening, members of the board, members of the public, welcome, and staff. My name is Sidney Aum. I'm the financial analysis supervisor for the district. So what I'll do, I'll get into the more detail of the proposed rates and proposed rate increase. I will discuss the miscellaneous fees and charges, facility connection charges, and then the key assumption that went into our long-term financial planning model. As you heard earlier, as part of the rate setting process, staff look at our long-range expenditures, looking at our projected demand, water demand, look at our water demand affected by the drought. We also look at the revenues, and all that get built into our sophisticated financial planning model that we use to calculate the rate, as you heard earlier. So these are the key assumptions that are built into the long-range financial planning model. The fiscal year 2022-23 amended budget that is included as a baseline. The water consumption demand based on conservation targets. We set the target with a modest drought rebound. You'll see that a little bit later. Labor and benefits costs consistent with the labor contracts. And the contribution to pension and retiree benefits for our employees are based on a more aggressive plan that the board approved to ensure that the both pension and retiree health benefit plans will be fully funded by July 1, 2022. We've had an option to change it, but the board decided to stay with the plan. There's a water rate increase from San Francisco Public Utility Commission, 15.9% that went into effect July 1 of 2022, that get built into our financial plan. Our long-range financial planning includes full funding for our capital program. Debt issuance, we assume the debt issuance in fiscal year ending 2025 to help fund our capital program. And then the plan assumes water rate adjustment 4% each of the next 2 year, with an out year assumption is a 3% annual rate increase. It also assumes that the drought surcharges end June 30th of this year. Now, this is just an assumption. When it will end will be determined by water supplies and board action, and you'll hear more about that later in the presentation. So when we look at our long-range financial planning model, there's some key metrics that we look at. We share these with the board. Over the next 3 slides, you'll see the different metrics. Again, as part of the rate setting process, we have 4 workshops, 3 that really focus on the rates, and we share this with the board. We update the board every time we had a new assumption. So this is finalized for this evening. The very top chart shows the general fund ending balances. As you can see, the current fiscal year, the district has a healthy fund balance, but that fund balance will be spent down over the planning horizon.
All right.
As you can see, with all the assumptions that I talked about, the ending balance or the reserve will be spent down to fiscal year ending 28. We assume that's going to be about $5 million below the reserve. Now, the board set the reserve target, and it will it's estimated to be about $5 million below that target. The projected bill demand, as I talked about earlier, this is based on our current assumption. It's we have a conservation target to hit, as well as you see an assumption of a modest rebound over the next 3 years. We'll keep looking at this. We'll update the board on an ongoing process. We'll have our 2-year budget coming up, a budget process. You're welcome to participate in those, and we'll make assumption based on what we know. These 2 other metrics. First, the top one is the debt coverage ratios. This is the ratio looking at our net revenue, compare that to our annual debt service. As you can see right now, the current fiscal year ending 22, the coverage ratio is very healthy. It's over 900%. The board set a target of 200%. The net revenue, all the revenue, subtract all the expenses, net revenue needs to be at least 200% of our annual debt service. As you can see, the coverage ratio is expected to decline over the planning horizon. But at the end of the planning horizon, it'll still be well above the target set by the board at 200%. The CIP funding, CIP and funding sources, this is our capital program. Shaded differently because of the funding sources. The takeaway from this slide is you can see the next 3 years, the district anticipate or plan to spend about $200 million in our capital improvement program. And then the bulk of that is our pay-go, what we call the general fund pay-as-you-go funding source. These are the last 2 slides of the metric that we will want to present this evening. This is looking at the operating revenues versus operating expenditures. That's key. And then the one below, looking at rate revenue, compare that to a revenue requirement, include debt service. As you can see, the operating revenue at the top chart is represented by the red line. The operating expenses represented by the blue bars exceed the revenue. So operating expenses exceed operating revenue. So how's the district is going to cover that funding gap? The district relies on what we call non-operating revenues to make up that what do you see the red there, the funding gaps. Similarly, the rate revenues, the bottom chart there, we compare that to revenue requirement, including debt service. Plus, on top of that, we look at the general fund funded CIP. So again, as you can see, the rate revenue, this is revenue from our rates, is not sufficient to meet the revenue requirement. That's pretty much our operation and maintenance expenses, plus payoff for general funded CIP. So again, the district relies on outside other funding sources, property taxes, grants and reimbursement, interest income, as well as the use of our accumulated reserve that you saw earlier that's trending down because the district is planning to use the reserve to fill the funding gaps. This is our amended fiscal year 22-23 budget. As I said, that's included in the long-range financial planning model. We breaks out the different cost center, as you see there, source of supply, capital projects, operations and maintenance. Those three cost center make up about 80% of our general fund budget. Each of those cost center, we also show the labor component for that. For capital projects, 1% is attributed to labor because it's mostly payment to third party contractors, vendors. O&M, operations and maintenance laborers. Our operation and maintenance program is more labor intensive. That's paying for staff related to water treatment, transmission and distribution. You see our staff out there doing the work. Source of supply, that's mainly purchased water, as you saw earlier, from outside sources. That's not local. So outside of the general fund, we also receive the revenue from facility connection charges. This is the development fees, as we call it. So last fiscal year, we received about 10 million. And then the current fiscal year so far, we receive close to 6 million. Now, this is really a restricted fund. It goes into a different fund. It's accounted for differently, and it can only be used for capital projects, either growth-related projects or projects that replace or refurbish facility. They cannot be used for operations like you see on the general fund slide or pie chart. So where's the money going? So based on our current plan, about a little over a third or 38% of the revenues goes to labor and benefits. So the proposed rate increase would generate about 5 million in annual revenue. And so 38% goes to labor and benefits. About a third goes to capital projects. And then the remaining goes into our operations, maintenance, and purchase water. Okay, so now we'll get into a little more specific on the proposed rates and charges. I'll walk through just briefly. You have it here. These are published in the Proposition 218 notice that will mail to that will mail out. So for average single family residential with a 5/8 or a 3-inch meter, the proposed increase effective March 1, 2023 goes from $58.94 to $61.30. That's an increase of $2.36. This is bi-monthly service charge. The following effective March 1, 2024, there'll be an increase of $2.45 for the average customers with a 5/8 or a 3/4-inch meter. On the commodity rates, the proposed increase is about 18 cents per unit, effective March 1, 2023, and 19 cents a unit effective March 1, 2024 for the inside district customer. Outside district customer, it's about 22 cents increase, 21 and 22 cents increase. We also mailed out notices to those customers that are outside of our service area. Also propose increase to the private fire service rates. So for the 3-4 inch fire service diameter, as you see on the chart there, it's from $7.93 to $8.25. That's an increase of 32 cents. And effective March 1, 2024, that's an increase of 33 cents. This is our schedules for the drought surcharges based on stage 2 emergency, stage 2A drought emergency, 15% conservation is highlighted there. So currently we're in a stage 2 water shortage emergency. The current drought surcharge is it's about 79 cents per unit of consumption. That is proposed to go to 82 cents effective March 1, 2023, and 85 cents effective March 1, 2024. As you can see here, so we look at the customer impacts from the proposed increase to the service charge and commodity charge. For a residential customer represented by the blue bar there, so 90% of our residential customers, the increase would be about between $0, no increase, to $10. So 90% of our residential customer will see an increase between $0 and $10. For non-residential, it's more spread out. This chart, we wanted to show the customer impact, assuming a sample single-family residential, consuming 16 units of water. As you can see there, it's a busy chart, but the takeaway here is that is a customer does not consume at all, does not conserve at all, would still use the 16 average 16 unit of water. That customer would see the bill go up from $137.78 to $150.90. No consumption, the bill would go up. However, if that customer conserve the 15% that district requested, it would be the customer would not see an increase. Okay, it's the drought over. Well, now I would like to turn it over to Laura Heides, or Director of Water Resources, to talk about this more.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alm. So with this winter's intense storms, many are asking if the drought is over. To put this in perspective, we wanted to share some information on current conditions and the range of factors that the district is looking at related to our drought status. So our state and our district have experienced severe drought conditions over the past 3 years. And during that time, we've seen a significant deficit in state water storage. The rain and snow this year to date has helped, and we're really hopeful that conditions are moving in the right direction. But there's still potential for continued dry conditions. As we've seen the last 2 years of dry springs in California, spring runoff does not always meet early season projections. And even with a hefty snowpack, a warm spring or a warm rainy storm over the Sierras can lead to an earlier accelerated snow melt that our state's water infrastructure is not able to capture. So we're continuing to wait and see how the spring shapes up. California remains also in a declared drought emergency. The U.S. Drought Monitor map on the right of the chart that you see here focuses on broad scale conditions in the state as of January 26th. A new map was actually published just this morning and is not shown here, but that map shows 52% of the state is in moderate drought, which is sort of the medium yellow color that you're seeing there. And 33% of the drought is still, 33% of the state is still in severe drought status. That's the darker sort of yellow orange color that you see there on the north and the south end of the state. So, and only a short time ago, much of the state was experiencing extreme and exceptional drought conditions. Locally, the district's imported water supplies remain constrained. The state water project remains at a 30% allocation, and the San Francisco regional water system remains under a water shortage emergency with an 11% system-wide reduction goal. The district's own water shortage emergency was declared in December 2021, when our ordinary water demands, or the typical water that we would need to use, could not be met with our available supplies. The district's 15% system-wide target to reduce water demand still remains in place, and our customers have done a wonderful job in meeting this target and putting us in the best possible position to weather this historic drought. Next slide, please. So the other question we wanted to address is, when will ACWD rescind its drought emergency declaration? So there are a couple of key areas the board will consider in determining the local drought emergency status. First, the status of the California Drought Emergency Declaration, including related executive orders from the governor and the State Water Resources Control Board's emergency water conservation regulations that we must comply with. Second, we will consider whether there is sufficient water supply to meet our customers' needs based on local and imported water supply conditions, including the San Francisco System's Water Shortage Emergency Declaration. At this point, we're only partway through the rainy season. California receives most of its rainfall in December through March, and typically the measurements of snowpack and conditions at the start of April firm up what the year's water supply picture will look like. We expect more certainty on all of our available supplies around this April timeframe. Our staff team is continuously monitoring new developments on supply availability and state regulatory developments, and will continue to provide regular updates to the board. Next slide, please. So a little broader look at some of the factors that we're continuing to watch that affect the local drought status. The State Water Resources Emergency Control Board emergency water conservation regulations that I mentioned earlier are still currently in place. So we'll be watching how those evolve. Also, the governor's drought executive order, N722, does require the regulations that water system must implement their level 2 water shortage actions, which is what we're doing now. And these are both things that we're watching at the state level. The San Francisco regional water system is still in a declared water shortage emergency, and curtailments remain a possibility on that system until conditions improve. And on the state water project, the recent allocation increase went from 5% to 30%, which is really encouraging, but dry conditions may persist. And so this is something we're also continuing to monitor. The spring snow surveys will provide more certainty on the system, where typically the April 1st snow survey firms up the allocation for the year for our planning. And last, our local groundwater conditions are improving, but there is still some room for additional storage, and we're continuing to monitor that routinely as well. And with that, I am happy to turn it over back to Mr. Aum to continue the presentation on the financial aspects.
Thank you, Ms. Heides. Right. This slide shows the proposed increase impacts on the average single-family residential customer. So the impact, the proposed increase effective March 1, 2023 is $5.32 per bill, or $2.65 per month. The proposed effective March 1, 2024 increase is $5.49 per bill, or $2.74 per month. So how do ACWD rates compare? So staff updated survey. So we do this annually. Look at about 30 other agencies, water providers in the region. This is the result based on the July 26, 2022 data. With the current rate, ACWD sits at number 8 lowest. With the proposed increase effective March 1, 2024, the district would be number 10, still the bottom third of the 30 agencies that we surveyed every year. Okay, so now we'll get into the other part of our presentation. It's the miscellaneous rates and charges. So staff conducts an annual review of our miscellaneous rate and fees and charges, and update them based on the cost to provide the service. You see a number of them here. Fire hydrant meter is significant because the price had increased dramatically. It's finally get updated this time. The other is just based on labor and material costs. Meter installation charges, these are effective May 1, 2023. The real reason for this is so installation is going to be using the ultrasonic meter versus the positive displacement meter. So the district proposes to add the meter tampering fees you see here. So this is to address the tampering that we've seen with the AMI meter. The charges here are same as the meter installation because of the ultrasonic meter that we'd be replacing with. And the charge is based on whether the tampering result in the investigation only, or staff goes out there and do an endpoint replacement, or replacing the meter altogether. So next part is the facility connection charges. So the board approved the updates to the facility connection charges back in 2019. It includes a 5-year phase-in for the equity buy-in. This is the 5th year of that. What the board approved, the board approved the inflationary adjustment every year based on the construction cost index for July 1, 2021 to July 1, 2022. The inflationary was 13.65%. So that's get applied to the final year of the phase-in. You see here for the residential meter for single-family dwelling units is $9,928 effective May 1, 2023. And the non-residential, municipal, and irrigation meters, as you see here again, this is an inflationary adjustment. The board had already approved these. So these will be effective May 1, 2023. So on the facility connection charges you heard earlier from President Sethy, the ACWD's facility connection charges you see here is on the left side. We did a survey again with our surrounding agency, East Bay Municipal Water District, Contra Costa Water District, Livermore, and Dublin Center Moan Services District. So the current and as well as the proposed facility connection charges, our area is anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4.5 times lower than the surrounding agency. As you see here, this is for a single family residential. If we go to the next slide, you'll see the non-residential 2-inch meter again. It's very dramatic how low the facility connection charges is here compared to other agency. All right, Help on Top program. I'll turn it over to Mr. Ethan Birch.
Let's see if we can get that last slide to the group that just left here, please. I think they could benefit from it.
Good evening. So I want to do a quick overview of the Help on Tap program. We talked about this last month, but it is again germane to the discussion tonight. So a quick overview for those who may not be aware. The Help on Tap program is the Alameda County Water District's income qualified low income rate assistance program. The current benefit is a $40 bi-monthly credit towards the service charge portion of the customer bill. Only direct Alameda County Water District customers that have an account with the district are eligible, provided they meet the income threshold for participation. Typically, this number hovers around 12 to 1,300 accounts. As of the date of this publishing, it was 1,269. Approved customers are enrolled for a 3-year period, and then at the end of that 3-year period, there's a recertification process that kind of just indicates that the customer still wants to participate and is still eligible to participate. We are currently going through a large-scale recertification process for this program at the moment. That should wrap up in the next few weeks. The income limit for the program is set at the greater of 50% of area median income or 250% of the federal poverty level. For a household of 2, this is a little under $60,000 a year. Next slide. Over the last 12 months, this program cost about $310,000 for the district to run. This number, it's hard to predict what it's going to be over a year because customers join the program and then drop off the program, and there's kind of always fluctuation. But that number is the actual cost for the last 12 months. We pay for this program using non-rate revenue. There's a variety of sources that we reviewed at the last meeting that can be used to pay for this program. And as part of that evaluation at the last meeting, the board evaluated increasing the Help on Tap benefit to 100% of the bi-monthly 3/4 inch meter service charge. And the board directed staff to prepare a proposal for this. Next slide, please. One of the other ways that customers can save money, there's a program that is state administered called the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program. This is a program that is funded with federal dollars, but administered by the state of California, that offers a one-time benefit for customers up until now who have fallen delinquent on their bills. And then beginning in the next few weeks, possibly months, there will be an option for customers who are not delinquent, but meet the income qualifications to receive a kind of prorated credit based on a variety of factors that the state has laid out for future water bills. So this is a benefit up to $2,000, depending on either the amount of delinquency or the household income and some other factors. Like I said, it's a state administered program. District staff are not involved in the creation of the rules or administration of the program. It's just something that's available to our customers. More information on this program is available on the webpage where we have information about the Help on Tap program, which is acwd.org/hot. Additionally, the district offers complimentary water checkups and water saving devices, and there's information on that program available at acwd.org/drought. And that is actually the end of my portion.
All right, just to give a brief update on the protest status and procedure. So in the interest of enhancing public input, the district has allowed protests to be submitted online as well as mailed in letter. So it's as of noon, February 6th, that's this Monday, February 6th, 2023, the district's received 241 protest submission comprised of 231 online form submittal, 6 emails, and 4 mail letters. As part of the underlying protest, we asked a customer to indicate the reason for their protest. 68% on service charge, 5% commodity charge, 16% of the protest for the drought surcharge, and 11% of the protest indicated other as the reason for their protest. Recommendations. So this staff recommendations for this evening for this item. Conduct a public hearing to receive comments on proposed revisions to the district's general rates and charges, including service charges, commodity charges, private fire service rates, and drought surcharges. That's 1. 2, by motion, adopt resolutions approving revisions to water-related rates and various other fees and charges, and amending the district's rate and fee schedule accordingly, and determining that the amendments are exempt from CEQA, including specific resolutions to 1, revise general water rates and charges and private fire service rates, 2, revise drought surcharges, 3, update miscellaneous fees and charges, the customer assistance program, and facility connection charges. The proposed effective dates for the changes are March 1, 2023 and March 1, 2024, except for development related charges, the facility connection charges. Those would be effective May 1, 2023 and May 1, 2024. And that concludes staff presentation. Thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. OM, and all the rest of the staff here for your presentations. You can tell there was a lot of work that was put into it. So at this time, I'm going to open the public comment portion of the public hearing. Anyone who would like to make public comments can do so by submitting a speaker card. You can also raise your hand in the Zoom app, submit your comments or questions in the chat feature in Zoom, or by speaking up verbally when invited to do so. And as a reminder, we ask that you state your name and service address when making comments if you would like your comments to be registered as a protest. And I would ask the district secretary to please unmute the meeting participants so they may make public comments. Also, we have one earlier participant, Wendy, who still has her hand up. I'm not sure if she wishes to speak now or can lower her hand if she doesn't wish to. Okay. If anybody wishes to speak that is online, please raise your hand. We'll come around to you. We'll go to people in the audience first. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come forward with public comments? Please do. Okay. Hi, are you Patricia Madden?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I'm Patricia Madden. My address is 4647 D Silva Street, Fremont, California, 94538. I'm 68 years old and I want to retire. The way rates and water and PG, especially PG&E, has gone up. I don't know how I can do it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm really surviving as it is. Then I don't have my income that I have to depend on. I work for the Alameda County Housing Authority, and our contract was up June 30th, and they want to give us a 1% raise. And we need to review you guys. You're doing a better job than ours. But anyway, and you guys are getting a much better raise than what we are anyway. But and I don't know what to do. I mean, I try to save as much water as possible as I can already, and then I feel like I'm stuck between a hard place and a rock where else can I cut back at? You know, I cut back as much as I can, so my bill won't be very high, and it's a struggle. And then you guys want to raise the rate again. And I know you guys aren't one of the highest ones, but you know, I just want to be taken into consideration. I also do work with people that are low income, and I know that they're struggling as well too. I talk to them all the time. So I just want you guys to take into consideration that there's people out there really struggling, and everything's gone. Not just the water, the PG&E is outrageous. Food, everything. You know, we did it crazy good. You know, turn on a light, watch TV, and my heater is 62 degrees at nighttime. You know, I turn it way down, but my bill was almost 3 times as much as normal. And yeah, I just try to hang in there. But I just wanted to speak my piece, let you know how I feel. I appreciate all you guys.
Ms. Madden, we welcome your comments, and also I would suggest that you contact our water conservation team. They can do a free audit of your home. And if you're eligible for our Help on Tap program, which, you know, takes care of a good portion of the fixed charge or service charge, you can look into that as well.
Okay. Well, I have gotten a pitch from you guys, you know, for the shower head, the thing we put in the toilet, all that kind of stuff to help cut back on saving water and whatnot too. I don't know what else they can do. I mean, you mean just somebody to come out to the house and tell me? I mean, I did have a drip out on my back patio, and I changed the faucet out so it doesn't drip anymore. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have any drips from any place, you know, I keep on top of that kind of stuff.
All right, we'll take your concerns into account.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Is there anyone else from the audience in front of us that would like to speak? So we'll turn to, I'm sorry. Come forward, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Ho. I come from Union City. I might have come by myself tonight, but my family member, they all live in Fremont or Union City. Actually, I present maybe party of 6. Anyway, I have something to say, or more like a protest about the draw surcharge. Because based on your record, you used for the previous year or assume this year gonna be draw. Therefore, you have a proposal beginning effective March 1st, have a rate increase. I don't think that's fair. Because you suppose your current information, because in January, we have tremendous rainfall. Our snowpack in Sierra is so big, so much. And we might have more rain come along. So if your proposal date in the end of March, that'd be more accurate, more acceptable. Plus, the government, they use April 1st to measure the year, snow, and rain for the total country or California. So when you're starting your proposal dated today, beginning of February, and it forces you to use the previous record, last year record. You're assuming, because last year we had a drought so bad. And Oroville, the water was 22%, but now this year 65%. So you know the water has a tremendous come to us. So you use it old record and make a proposal, create a rate increase for this year. I don't think it's makes sense to me. I think majority of people have a doubt, a big question mark about that. Also, I read your newsletter. I'm going to jump to other subject. Also, you talk about infrastructure, how you're planning to do this or do that. There's no date. When are you gonna do it? How much is it gonna cost? You have to have a really clear planning detail. Then you put on your newsletter. That way we can see clearly. Oh, in that case, maybe I should move away from California because they're gonna charge me more and more and more each year. But you're just saying that just doesn't make sense. Just like California gonna build a railroad from Los Angeles to San Francisco for 10 years. The taxpayer pays so much money, right now got killed. The governors stopped this project. Therefore, you know, maybe it's an educational thing. So anytime you have infrastructure planning, make sure, make a clear information. When, how much it'll cost, when you're gonna do it. Okay, other than that, just fly in the air, nothing, to me, nothing. And I think you talk about where the dollar goes. 36% goes to wages and benefits. And the next lower is 25% for infrastructure improvement or equipment. Only 19% water purchased from the state for San Francisco. So 19% for the water is what we concern the most is the water. It's only on the bottom, 19%. But your wages and benefits, 36%. The proportion to me is reversed, supposed to be reversed. And so in order to make your newsletter more effective way, short, clear, cut. 1, 2, 3, rather than a whole lot of word about what we're gonna do that. You know, a lot of people, young people working hard a day for their end meet. They don't want to look. One page goes to next page, go to next page. Just make it simplify. We don't need a fancy paper, maybe a colorful paper. We want to dealing with a fact and clear information, just like a PTAE, only 2 colors, or 3 colors, black, white, and blue.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, I think not many people here, but I see, but I cover all. If your panel, I'm sure your panel have a lot of higher educated people, doctor degree or master degree. But so far each year, I don't see a big movement going on any direction. Today I read an article, there's a professor from Cornell. He's probably, sorry, your time is up. I'm done.
Can I give this lady my time, my
Yeah.
5 minutes?
Please summarize your comments in the next.
Okay, make it short, okay? If we really don't know how to deal with this water, just in case in the future, because of climate change, nobody knows in the future. Maybe we should invite some expert from other country. Israel has a 60% desert, but they are considered themselves a water powerful country. They have managed something doing well for their water management. Maybe we can invite them to come over to look at our situation and give us good advice, exchange some knowledge. I think that's a good point, good idea too.
And-
Okay.
And thank you very much for your comments. I would ask somebody from the staff maybe to follow up with our customer here. Just made some good comments. I also think we have some good information to help her better understand where we're coming. So, would anyone else from our general audience here of the district like to make comments? Not seeing any, we will turn to folks that are online with us on Zoom. Again, Wendy H has had her hand up. I don't know if she is still with us or left the meeting. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, I'm still here.
You wish to speak?
Yes. Yes, I thank you for the presentation. I do appreciate it very much. I would like to first ask a question. You said that California is not able to capture the water. So 95% of the rainwater just basically flows to the bay. So I want to know, when is our government, our leaders going to conserve water? I know that all these plans are to help to ask the consent of the governed to conserve water. But I just want to know, when is Gavin Newsom going to build dams, not removing dams, not asking Warren Buffett to remove dams and put fish over people? So that's my first question. And number two is that I wanted to know that, see, Americans lost $1 trillion in disposable income in 2022. Average about $6,000 in disposable income due to inflation, and $1,400 due to higher interest rate in their car loans, credit cards, and everything. So right now, just to tack on a drought surcharge, I think that it's just way out of line right now. Because if our leaders are not able to capture water, just like the previous concerned residents have said, if Israel can turn a desert into an oasis, there is no excuse, especially in this high-tech capital of the world, the most affluent, first world country, that we cannot conserve water at the collective level. I think something is very wrong. So I wanted to put this in the record. My name is Wendy Huang, and I live in Union City. My address is 32741 South Bellamy Loop. Okay, I came from Asia, and where I came from, it's constantly being threatened by the communists. The reason why Hong Kong was basically had to return, even with the lease land had to return to China, was because of water. Water is very important. Our food, our farmers needs water. So right now I'm asking if yes, I will conserve water. I'll do my best, but please bring this up to the leaders, and also CEQA, make sure that our government is conserving water for future generations. Make sure our farmers have enough water to make food, to have food security for Californians and for the rest of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Could you put your hand down, please? Are you done here? Thank you. And we'll elevate Mr. Ken Nishimura to speak.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Ken Nishimura. My service address is on record with the district. As I have submitted the rationale for my protest online, I'll be brief. In summary, the 2 points I would like to make are the lack of tiered rates and affirmative steps to remove the drought surcharge. I've made multiple requests for the district to implement tiered rates. As Mr. Wunderlich reiterated in tonight's presentation, the district has multiple sources of water and maximizes the use of the lowest cost water. This implies that when the district needs to provide more water than the capacity of that lowest cost water, the per unit cost of the district increases. Eventually, if needed, the district will be forced to purchase water from the most expensive source, most likely SFPUC, which, as we saw tonight, has a 15.9% increase this year. SFPUC water is so expensive that the district is effectively providing it at cost without recouping the cost to transport and distribute the water. Despite what Director Weed has stated in the past about triple markup, such does not hold true for SFPUC. This wide variance in cost of water is the basis for tiered rates. Prop 218 requires a district to charge the cost of service. While it is permissible to average the costs, it is morally bankrupt to have conscientious and frugal users of water to subsidize profligate and wasteful users of water. The excuses the board has given about needing AMI are specious. Multiple utilities have implemented tiered rates for years, and their customers understand how they work. As far as the drought surcharge, we're now in the synthetic drought. It is no longer a drought due to lack of rain. The rainfall report in the packet shows that even if it does not rain again this season, we are above average. The same for the Sierra snowpack. Our drought is due to our infrastructure not being able to capture the water when it is available. Enough water flowed through Alameda Creek in January to meet the district's need for several years. Although I understand your explanation of why the surcharge is still in place, it does seem more and more like a stealth rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that is participating by Zoom or online that would like to make a comment? Do we have somebody?
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
I believe it's the same question that's both in the chat and the Q&A, so I'll just go to the chat. The question is, why is the water so hard in Fremont? And there's an observation too, the charges are way high for that quality. And we can address any questions after we've received all of the questions and comments. Happy to address that one.
Would you like to answer that question right now? Because our water's been extremely soft over the last year.
Yeah, we can just quickly note, and I'll invite other staff to.
And it's in our board presentation too. At the very end, it shows remarkably soft water throughout the entire Tri-City service area.
Yeah, and really hardness is one of those things that's in the eye of the beholder. Many people experience water differently. President Sethy, you're right that hardness has been low in our service area for some time. Right now, it's all fairly low across the board. I'm looking at the distribution system hardness map that's in our packet. It's the very last sheet in the packet for the person who's interested in this information. The data is there. And so, yeah, relatively low, but like I said, people do experience the aesthetic qualities of water differently. Certainly it's on the low end of the hardness scale.
Okay. Do we have any additional comments or protests, District Secretary, that have been submitted? Okay. So if we don't have any additional written comments or any other questions that I can see from everyone here, then we will close this portion of the public comment period on our public hearing. And so I will turn this over to our board of directors to see if any director has questions of staff or general counsel based on the questions or comments that were presented by the public. Start with Director Weed.
Yes. I'd like a brief discussion on the flexibility the district has in the water rates, particularly with the drought surcharge, and the ability to curtail the drought surcharge rather than have it in place for an entirety of a year.
So I guess I can take that question. Imposing the drought surcharge is basically a financial mechanism while we're seeking this 15% conservation to ensure sufficient revenues to reliably provide water service. But it is not like a mandate that's imposed on the board. So it is an action, a discretionary action. We can only impose it while we are in a declared water shortage emergency as we are now. As staff, we are hopeful that within the next couple of months, as we get the more reliable data in April, that we'll be in a good position to make some updated decisions in relation to the surcharge and the drought declaration status.
And those decisions could include eliminating the drought surcharge for the.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Director Huang.
So I'm actually going to follow up on that a little bit. I think based on the comment we heard and the protests that we received, there is a misconception on how we implement the drought surcharge and what's the purpose of the drought surcharge. You covered the purpose of the drought surcharge, basically is making up the financial shortfalls. But I think we should let our customers know that the drought surcharge will only be in place if we have a water shortage emergency and when we have to curtail water use. Once the water shortage emergency is over, that drought surcharge will be removed. So it will not be in place for the year in its entirety. So to address some of your comments, ma'am, it's actually based on close to this year, real-time water supply vision or water supply picture instead of last year. So I know we struggle on how to explain this drought surcharge, and based on the comments we received from multiple community workshops, we try our best to explain it, and obviously we were not very successful. But I think the commitment you have heard from me, you're hearing from me right now is once we're assured that we have sufficient water and our financial picture is in a healthy state, which I think we'll get a better vision in the next couple months, we will remove it. We did it once last time, and we'll do it again this year. Once that emergency is over, the drought surcharge will disappear.
Thank you. Let me note that there's a difference of opinion on the board. It's my belief the drought surcharge is therefore a loss of revenue, and people can serve, and we have an unbalanced rate structure. We see our revenues drop, therefore we need to augment. There's a feeling we need to augment our revenues. It has little to do with the drought, with the water supply in my mind. But that's our difference of opinion. It's an excuse we have.
I think the question from the audience is why is it being drought surcharge when it's not for the drought? It's actually related to the drought. As of the drought, we are required to do mandatory 15% conservation, in this case by the state. Because of the conservation, we have a financial shortfall because we're selling less water, so we have to somehow cover that. I think that would be, Mr. Wonderlich, is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, that's accurate. And once our water supplies are in a situation where we can rescind the drought emergency, we would no longer be placing restrictions on customers and how they can use water. And so at that point, there would no longer be a justification to maintain the surcharge, and it would be rescinded.
Thank you.
And quickly, have we restructured our rates so that the fixed costs were matched by fixed income and the variable cost by variable income? We would not have that revenue shortfall.
Thank you. I don't think this is a appropriate forum for us to have this discussion.
That's what drives the drought. Thank you.
Director Akbari. I don't have questions on the presentation, but I do have comments. Are we, please go forward. Okay. So First of all, I just want to express my appreciation to everyone who showed up today and provided comments both in person and on Zoom, and everyone who shared their feedback with us through the rates protest process as well. As an individual board member, I took the time to read through every single protest that we received because I wanted to make sure that I was hearing all of the feedback that we received from the community. And then again, I just want to express my appreciation to members of the public who spoke today, Ms. Patricia Madden, Ms. Emily Ho, Ms. Wendy Huang, and then Mr. Ken Nishimura as well. So I'll just begin by saying that I will be voting in favor of the rate increase proposal that we have today. I'm going to offer some of my perspective on why I think it is reasonable. I understand that not everyone is going to agree with my rationale, but I'm just here to offer that perspective. As a director, one of our core responsibilities is making sure that we can meet the mission statement of the Alameda County Water District, which is to provide a reliable source of water at a reasonable cost to all of our customers, residential, commercial, and irrigation customers. We strive to do that to the best of our ability and to be very judicious with the resources that were provided. We're seeing a changing environment of both of changing physical environment, of changing regulatory environment, of changing economic environment, and we're constantly striving to be as responsive to that as possible. You heard tonight about some of the ongoing projects that we're working on. Of course, you know, when you turn on the tap, we want to make sure that you're receiving the best quality product that we can put forward, but that requires us to continuously innovate and to be at the forefront of some of those changing requirements. We talked a little bit about some of the seismic improvement projects that we have. That's going to feed into the reliability that we're here to offer our customers. We want to make sure that even in a major earthquake, we're able to bring service back to all of our customers so that you can continue to receive that reliable source of water that you've come to expect from us. Those projects and programs are ongoing, and they're going to help meet that requirement over the course of the next few decades. We talked a little bit about the new programs that we've instituted to try and address emerging contaminants. We want to make sure that we're addressing any new challenges that we're facing and any new contaminants that are in our sources of supply. That's a constant battle for us, and we're looking to be on the forefront of those programs to make sure that we continue to provide both that reliability that you've come to expect and the quality of water that you've come to expect from our district. We talked about AMI, our automated metering infrastructure. We want to make sure that we're empowering our customers with the latest technology to make sure that you can see in near real time how much water you're using and that you're able to catch leaks and be responsive to the drought situations that might come up. You're able to continue to conserve water. Those AMI projects, which we're already rolling out and which will continue to be rolled out over the next couple of years, will give our customers access to information that they don't have today, but that'll be so valuable to them over the course of, again, the next couple of decades that project will hopefully be in place for. And then we talked a little bit about the clean energy program. Again, we're looking not just to be responsive to the changing environment and try to lower our carbon footprint, but this will also lead to a direct cost savings for us in our operations so that, again, we can be as judicious as possible with the energy and money that we receive from our customers. The money that we receive from our customers as it relates to our energy expenses. And these projects will help us meet that goal. For the last 5, now coming on 6 years, we've had a Help on Tap program so that our low-income customers can try to offset some of these rate increases with that program. We're constantly looking to expand that program. You heard tonight that we're looking to expand that benefit so that Help on Tap program can cover the full service charge for our low-income customers. And I, as an individual director, would love to see us expand that program too, so more folks can be eligible and we can provide that assistance to anyone who needs it. I don't relish the fact that folks have to conserve water simply because they're not sure if they can pay for their bill. That's not a situation we want to find anybody in. And so that Help on Tap program is helping us try to meet some of those concerns within our community. And then again, as an individual director, as soon as we're able to lift the drought surcharge, I'm certainly going to vote in favor of that. We've had a great winter as it relates to water. We're looking to take advantage of that. And as soon as we have the data to say that, hey, we can reliably supply our customers with all of the water that they're going to need over the course of the next year, I want to be able to say that, yes, we can remove the drought surcharge as well. That's my perspective. That's why I think the rate increase that we're proposing tonight will help provide that reliability for our customers. It'll help provide us with those it'll help provide us with money for those projects so that we can continue to provide the best quality water to our customers. I understand that that perspective is not necessarily going to be shared by everyone, but that's my rationale for why I'm going to vote yes tonight.
Pete, your 5 minutes is up.
Sorry.
Director Gunther.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What kind of formula that you use consider the draw is lift? Based on what kind of situation? So I want to get some idea.
Okay, maybe I could, I'll take a shot. Yeah, okay, but we closed the public input. We're going into board deliberations. If you want an answer to your question, I would ask that you wait until we've finished conducting our meeting. Emily, you're from Union City, correct? I'm not next anyway. So you're from Union City, correct?
Say it again?
No, you're a resident of Union City, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm assuming we're gonna go into a breakout. Sure, yeah. We could chat. I'm your director who represents Union City. I think there's a lot of information that perhaps I could explain why, because I also, as director of Akbari, I support what we're gonna do tonight. We'll vote in favor. However, I think if I could explain a lot of the things a little better, perhaps. Because it's a lot of information. And I also have read all of the complaints, all the protests, excuse me. The majority of them didn't have any comments at all. But a lot of them did have comments regarding the drought surcharge. And believe me, that's a hard concept to get your arms around when Alameda Creek is almost flowing over into Union City. I had 3 inches of water in my backyard. But the problem we have is, if this had been last year, we had that same rainfall, we probably would have already declared it over. State probably would have said, great. But last year, we were, I think, at 165% of average the end of December. We finished the year, and I don't remember what the number was below average, but I know it was fairly significant. By April, we were well below average because it did not rain again. So we were our 3rd straight year ago. In December, things looked great. By April, we were still in a disaster. So yes, things are looking fantastic. Snowpack, great. Oroville Dam Reservoir up 65% now, maybe even higher. Hetch Hetchy looking really good. The local reservoirs, absolutely fantastic. Groundwater basin looking pretty good. You look at Quarry Lakes, I'm sure you can see it's pretty full. The recharge basins. So it looks great. But you know, it still could fail on us. So we're trying to go conservative. I will be one of the first ones when we can say this is over, it'll be over. We've done it before, and we have rescinded the drought thing. I think that was in 2017 when we had the drought surcharge.
2016.
2016. As soon as it was declared over, off. Why did you see it in our rate bulletin? That is there as a tool. We have to do it again.
You see, if we're gonna raise your rates, we have to go out to the public through Prop 218 notice, like we just did. Well, our 218 notice for a rate surcharge ability is expiring. So if we need this year, I'm pretty optimistic that we're gonna be okay. Probably for at least another year. Looks really good. What if we're not? Or what happens if next year everything doesn't rain again? It's happened. It would give us that tool to act right away, which it put the drought surcharge in effect right away versus having to go out and wait that period of time. So just because it's in the rate notice, that drought surcharge portion, the only way we're going to implement that is if we're in a drought emergency. Like I said, it's really hard to talk about a drought emergency when we have this much water. We're still kind of there. The state hasn't declared it over. San Francisco hasn't declared it over. I know we talk a lot about April. That's the end of the kind of the drought, the rainy season, when they'll have their real figures. Like I said, last year, we were looking really good at the end of December. By April, we were like, oh my God. So, God willing, we're going to be in good shape. There's a lot of stuff on infrastructure I would love to talk to you about. I've attended some of these meetings where we talked about Israel. We would love to see the state do some stuff, and we are involved. I don't know if you noticed the Las Cascaras project. That's one of the projects. It takes time, maybe too long a time. Certainly, we would say that. But we are involved. That's where some of the money's going. Inflation, supply chain impacts, we've been hit hard. We've been really hit hard by inflation. We can't make a profit. We don't exist to make a profit. We're looking at a 4% rate increase, and inflation's been, I think, somewhere around 8%. So we are scaling back. We're cutting back as best we can. I mean, certainly when you see 4%, you don't see that. Well, I don't want to pay more money either. I'm gonna as well. But we're doing our best. The staff does a great job trying to cut those costs and reduce these costs. There was a mention about the labor cost versus water. Well, raw water is one thing. Processed water is another. And our treatment plants are runs 24/7. Our desal plant, 24/7. Occasionally we take them down for maintenance. The well field, there's almost always something running. And staff, we're staffed almost 24 hours a day, if not 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You don't see it because, you just see, maybe you see the trucks go by. The storm impact was incredible on our staff, but it was hidden. It's nice to do a job, a stealth job, so you're not noticed. Usually when you're noticed, it's not for a good reason. But I think we're not noticed for a very good reason. Our staff does a really good job, but they're there. We're involved we have chemists, we have groundwater people, we have some of the best water supply people we could find, and that's been critical keeping us where we are today. Water quality. When I first ran for the board, man, you could barely drink water in Union City. Today, the hardness is about half of when I started. Staff's done an incredible job lowering that hardness. So some of that is affected by, we're on the well fields over there, but and the wells are harder. Groundwater is harder. Right now, we've got an issue with, dare try to pronounce PFAS forever. These are being dictated once again by state EPA regulations. You might have heard of them. They're talking about parts per trillion measurements. This didn't exist 3 years ago. I think it's $16 million we're looking at for adding a treatment plant over on the well fields off of Maori. over their plant to take out PFAS that we found in well water. That was an unforeseen hit. Maybe we didn't identify that as strongly as we could. I noticed they put it in there, and I give our staff is terrific here. They're sitting here, they're listening, they took my comments, I'm sure, into under no. But it's hard to do. And like I said, I'm perfectly willing to chat with you later. Hopefully, maybe can answer some more of your questions. But you know, a couple of years ago, we didn't have a rate increase. We also didn't have a PFAS. Because I wouldn't have voted for no rate increase if I knew I was going to have $16 million PFAS coming up. Once again, we're doing good. I'm hoping against hope to be able to rescind the drought surcharge and not have to put another one in place for a couple of years at least. It's a real nice thing not to have to do that. The last 3 years, as you all know, have been pretty tough. I noticed a lot of people's lawns are dead. So I appreciate that. My drought sign is pretty much destroyed by the rains. And I am thrilled to death that we've had all this rain. But the messaging has made it difficult. And it takes a lot to message that no, we're not here to impose a drought surcharge. We need it there as a tool in the event things turn sideways. And I'm willing you won't, because it's looking really, really good. But that message, we can't, we don't want to get too optimistic. That rain we just had, fantastic. A little bit of rain in February, we're supposed to hopefully get a little bit more. This is what we really need right now. If the storms come in, keep it up. That's what didn't happen last year. So we are over average. It's great. Mountain snowpack, I believe, is also over average for the year. That is fantastic. So I hope to bring good news in April. Appreciate your driving down here. We will take a break a little bit later if you want to. So that was my position. Hopefully, I could explain it a bit. I do truly believe there's been a disconnect. People thinking that we have the drought surcharge in there and we're going to keep it in there. No, we can get it out of there. It's coming out. The fact that it's in the hearing, it's only there, so we have the tool to do it if we have to. That's nice. Thank you for coming down. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments, Director Gunther. So let me just first say, anyone here in the boardroom or on Zoom, otherwise, you're always welcome to give me a phone call or send me an email, or if you want to have to sit down for coffee or tea, I'm welcome to do that too. Just to talk about water issues in general. I recently had 2 weeks ago a tea coffee clash with folks in my own neighborhood at the request of one lady who tried to pull together a bunch of other neighbors. And I took over my water bill, which I just paid that day. And I used 14 units, which is about an average customer for a 2-month billing period. And I showed them that worked out to a little less than 10,500 gallons of water in a 2-month cycle. And I'm on a fairly large property. And that came to 1.28 cents per gallon with the drought surcharge and 1.18 cents without the drought surcharge. They were not in effect. And I try to put things into perspective that you go down to the supermarket and you pay $1 a quart of water, or you go to Starbucks or Pete's or someplace else and you pay $5 to $7 for a cup of flavored water. And when you start considering what water actually costs at the retail level compared to an agency that is delivering water based on a true cost of service, it's one of the great bargains to me in our society that a public agency can deliver water from hundreds of miles away from Oroville, and we're responsible for our fair share of costs on that entire 440-mile system. We also, and when the Oroville Dam collapsed, that was $1 billion expense in repairs. We had to pitch in our fair share of the costs on that. San Francisco has recently done, over the last 10 years, $8 billion of upgrades to the Hetch Hetchy system, including tearing down Calaveras Reservoir right behind Mission Peak and rebuilding a whole new reservoir at the cost of close to $1 billion. We had to pay our fair share of the cost of doing that. And we're 4% of the Hetch Hetchy San Francisco system. So, you know, that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars that we're responsible for, that they pay bonds and we pay them through what they charge us on water rates. We saw earlier in the presentation from staff that San Francisco introduced a 15.9% rate increase last July, 2022. And in the foreseeable future, there are going to be double-digit increases in Hetch Hetchy water to pay back all of the infrastructure improvements. The cost of Hetch Hetchy water, by the way, which is some of the most pristine water in the United States, is the most expensive water in California per acre foot. And we have the luxury of receiving that water and mixing it into our distribution system here in our community. The other factor that a lot of people are missing out on is that during the drought, while during a typical year, 20% of our water comes into the community from Hetch Hetchy, we had to use a lot more Hetch Hetchy water to blend with our groundwater because we were down to a 5% allocation from the state on water coming in from Oroville. That's 5% of our normal allocation. We're only back up to a 30% allocation in the last month. So we had to supplement or substitute the most expensive water in the state, good quality water, for lack of water from our other import sources. And our groundwater supplies were diminishing at the same time. So it's really a balancing act. And I just want to try to put it in perspective that when you can get a gallon of water to your home with all these costs in the system, on top of that, we're forgetting we're responsible for 900 miles of pipeline in our Tri-City area. That's enough to drive from here to Yellowstone National Park. We're one of the oldest water districts in the entire state of California, the oldest county water district in California, and our pipelines are aging out. We have to upgrade miles and miles of pipeline at $2 to $5 million a mile right now. A heavy burden on the water district. And we're running out of time because once you get to a certain point, you're going to have lots of failures in the system. The other thing I'd like to remind folks about is we live on the Hayward Fault. When I first ran for this board, it was to help us get bonds passed to upgrade the large diameter pipelines along the Hayward Fault. And through 2 bond cycles, we were able to get that completed. Otherwise, we would have no water running from the east side of the fault to the west side after an earthquake. And so we went through major upgrades on seismic upgrades, and now we're going through additional smaller diameter pipeline seismic upgrades in our community. But we are dead center, one of the most vulnerable populations in our Tri-City area for a major quake. I'll close on this, tying in with the quake. The last major quake was in 1868. that was called the Great San Francisco Earthquake before the 1906 earthquake. And it devastated everything from Richmond down to San Jose. And that fault has a periodicity of a major quake like that, 7.0 or more every 90 to 165 years. And we are now in about getting close to 155. We're well past the median of 140, well past the shortest duration of 90, and we're getting close to the maximum. The USGS says this is the most vulnerable fault in the entire United States. And if a quake happens like that, just witnessed one in Turkey, this will be $1 trillion of damage to the Bay Area. And I am proud of the fact that this district is doing everything it can to help ensure that we will be able to weather through a major quake in the future. So for those reasons, I will be voting in favor of these rate increases. And I plead with the public to think about the real value of what is being delivered to your home for just about a penny a gallon. I consider that a bargain. Thank you. So, are there any additional board comments?
Just briefly. The drought surcharge, which is an element of the total rate structure, is only about 10% of the total water sales. We sell about $120 million in water per year. The drought surcharge generates $1 million on average. The first 6 months of this year, ending in December, our revenues exceeded our budgeted expenses by about $7 million.
If there are no other board comments, are there? Director Huang? Okay, then at this time, I'm going to formally close the public hearing. And the public hearing is now closed. Am I properly following the guidelines, General Counsel?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right, so we'll turn to the staff recommendation, and I would welcome any staff input right now on what we should do.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Wunderlich, you wanted to? Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got this in. The final tally of protests received was 256. And so that, in accordance with Proposition 218, that is below a majority, so the board is free to act as it so chooses.
So I would welcome a motion from the board in reference to the recommendation from staff.
And just as a reminder, we have 3 different resolutions here before the board this evening. The board could take them all up with one action, but you might consider taking each one of the 3 up separately.
We could take them separately, I prefer.
Can you read out each one?
Sure, yeah, no problem. We have three resolutions. One is to implement the recommended amendments to the district's miscellaneous fees and charges and help on tap customer assistance program. And just as a reminder there, the proposal is to increase the benefit amount to equal the service charge and reflect previously approved adjustments to the facilities connection charges with an inflationary update and final phase-in of the equity buy-in component. So that's the first resolution.
Why don't we take that just by itself then, right now?
Yeah. I'd like to move that item.
Second. Secretary, please take the roll.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang, Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. Second part.
Okay, so the second resolution is to implement recommended amendments to the district's water-related rates and charges, including service charges, consumption charges, private fire service rates, and outside district consumption charges.
Make that motion. And then we take sequels separately, right?
No, all these resolutions include the sequel findings.
All right.
What your
no,
general
we're
manager
taking
is summarizing
fees
is the actual amendments to the rate fee schedule.
So we have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion, staff recommended.
I'll second. And that does not include the drought surcharge.
That's correct. The drought surcharge would be the last resolution.
Directors Gunther.
Aye.
Akbari.
Aye.
Huang. Aye. Weed.
Aye.
And Sethy.
Aye. Now we'll take the drought surcharges.
Yes, this final resolution would be to implement the recommended amendments to the drought surcharges.
Again, take that motion, staff recommended.
I'll second.
Directors Gunther.
Aye.
Akbari.
Aye.
Huang. Aye. Weed.
No.
And Sethy.
Aye. So at this time, if everyone agrees to it, I would like to recommend a break. It's getting close to. Yeah, so why don't we just take a short break until 8 o'clock? We're officially going to call this meeting back to order. Thank you. And we're going to move on to another exciting report, item 5.8, delivery of our groundwater monitoring report and survey report, and adoption of the resolutions related to the Replenishment Assessment Act. This is always one of my favorite presentations.
It's a big part of what we do here, of course. And for this item, I'll turn it over to our Director of Water Resources, Laura Heides.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. As required by the Replenishment Assessment Act of the Alameda County Water District, the district must prepare an engineering survey and report on groundwater conditions, and the board must adopt the necessary regulations of intent on or before the second Tuesday of March as prerequisites to a public hearing, which must be held on the second Tuesday of April. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow public comment on both the survey report and the proposed replenishment assessment rate. Survey report includes a recommendation for a 4.9% increase in the replenishment assessment rate for groundwater pumped or extracted for other than agricultural and municipal recreational purposes, effective on July 1, 2023. This proposed increase is subject to public notification requirements that were established through Proposition 218. This recommendation is based on projected activities needed to sustain the groundwater basin in fiscal year 2023-24. With consideration of groundwater levels and quality documented in the 2022 groundwater monitoring report. Under state law, there is a 120-day statute of limitations for challenging any new, increased, or extended fee or charge. Approval of this item is consistent with Strategic Plan Goal 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies, and Strategic Plan Goal 3, improve the district's financial stability and transparency. And so tonight you're receiving the reports, and next month, Mr. Mike Hallowell will be here to make a presentation on the report to look forward to. And so tonight's recommendation is simply to receive the 2022 groundwater monitoring report and the survey report on groundwater conditions, February 2023. And by motion, 1, adopt a resolution declaring the board's intention to continue use of replenishment assessment revenue to fund a portion of the groundwater basin costs in fiscal year 2023-24, setting April 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. as the date and time for a public hearing for consideration of the proposed increase to the replenishment assessment, and directing staff to mail to owners and operators of wells that would be subject to the replenishment assessment notification of the proposed increase and public hearing details. And 2, adopt a resolution extending the deadline for installation of measuring devices on certain non-metered wells. And I'm happy to answer any questions on this item.
Any questions from the board here?
More of a comment than a question. Structure is a question. We are dealing with an act that was adopted some 50 years ago, which related to the replenishment of the groundwater reservoir now in Niles Cone. At that time, the only contaminant that we were concerned with, I believe, was chlorides. We had saltwater intrusion, seawater intrusion. But in the interim, have we not begun to take greater concern over other contaminants and also dissolved oxygen in the groundwater basin? And to what extent do our analysis and studies take into account these other contaminants, some of them emerging in our analysis? And would it make sense to try and incorporate them or build an appendix to the report that we have before us, which meets the requirements of this some 50-plus-year-old law?
Good question. So the way we calculate the replenishment assessment rate, it does take into account capital projects that relate to groundwater basin management and also other groundwater basin management activities. So I think much of probably what you're talking about is included, but it's a great question. So if we can certainly follow up with more information if you're interested in the details of what all's included.
I would suggest there are other issues other than chloride that we would want to take into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are some good points, Director Weed. Any other board comments, questions? Any comments from the public? Seeing none in the boardroom, is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak up? I'm not seeing any. So I will turn it back to the board for any sponsorship on the recommendation here.
I make the motion to adopt staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Director Huang seconds.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
All right.
and Sethy.
Aye. And April 11th is our normal board meeting, right? Or is that
It's on a Tuesday.
Tuesday or Thursday?
The
Tuesday.
Tuesday, because of that same law.
This is the one day. Okay.
Yeah, it's
so-
good to point that out, particularly for the public. There's one odd board meeting per year, and it's the Tuesday in April. So normally we have our board meetings on Thursday. Here's a Tuesday board meeting. It's because that date is specified in the act, so we can't really change it.
Yeah,
And so our April board meeting will be on Tuesday, the 11th.
okay. So next month, we have a replica of this month's calendar, unusual. So we will have our board meeting on the 9th, like today, and then the following month it will be on Tuesday, the 11th.
Just a comment on that. I understand that there's a commission called the California Law Revision Commission, which has the ability to review aspects of state law and bring them into a more rational review. And this would be of interest if we were to request that that aspect of the law be revisited, if we take the risk of taking it to this anything to the state legislature. But if it goes through the California Law Revision Commission, that is an organization trying to clarify and correct or maybe edit some of the existing statutes. And they've had a great success record.
So is this something that our general counsel could look into?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
I have looked at this commission, and they've made something like 20,000 recommendations and changes to state law with about a 90% success rate. It's on their website. And they have a streamlined way of getting things to the governor's desk. I kind of agree with, I haven't talked to Director Weed about this, but it kind of does make some sense here. Might be an opportunity.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Okay.
Coordinate with the general manager.
So we're done with item 5.8 and we're going to move on to reports. Do we have any directors that would like to comment on any of the board committee reports?
I would note that we are on track for the wettest year in history.
Yes, so seeing no comments on board committee reports, we'll move to item. I don't see any from the public either. So we'll move on to item 6.2 operational reports. Are there any comments or questions?
Well, I'll comment on the hardness report. There is a hardness report. We put this in our meeting packets. It's almost always towards the end. It's some very interesting information of what the hardness levels are throughout the district. Parts per, this is how hard your water is. It's gone down significantly. Particularly in the city, Union City and the Niles district. And some of this is, we were trying to, we're adding Hetchetchee water for PFAS. We are benefit for that in Union City as our water levels are down, hardness levels are down, like they've never been before. There was a comment earlier from one of the protests that about the hardness. Yeah, you know, hardness in relationship to San Francisco, which is some of the softest water in the country. But as far as well water goes, we're doing pretty darn good. So I just wanted to point that out. The map is here. It's in all, and I think every meeting. Staff knows what we look at this very, very closely, and I appreciate their efforts.
Yeah, it looks good.
And we got the rainfall report in here as well. Are we going to cover the rainfall report directly? I think. No,
We certainly
comment.
ready to answer any questions.
because it does look like it's above the yearly average, correct?
It's above the 82, 83 storm level.
Actually heading towards that too.
So
Rainfall looks great.
if I could add a little flavor on the rainfall report, if you're interested.
I think this is one of the few times that we can actually talk nicely about the rainfall report in the last 3 years. So we might as well take advantage.
Sure, just real quick, the rainfall to date is 22.35 inches through the 8th. And we're actually, I'm looking at the graph again because we're actually tracking to sixth wettest year so far. And I think the way it shows up on the graph, because the blue line of the 1982-83 numbers show sort of like the monthly tally. Our daily tally on the red, daily rainfall for this year looks like it's above, but actually based on the statistics, we're probably about the sixth wettest year as of today's date, or the 8th. So we'll see how it goes these next couple of months. I don't think we're going to get to where we were in 1982-83 in the end, if I had to bet, but I'm excited to find out.
Thank you. Yeah, if we got up to like 60 inches, that would be pretty extraordinary. I do have a request of staff on 6.2.8, the quarterly personnel report. I read through that and was looking at our head count and turnover and other things. I would like, rather than occupying time here in the board, I'd like to send in my questions to staff and have it brought to the Finance and Administration Committee if we may.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, for a review.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll submit my questions later on. So without any other comments or questions here, and I don't see any hands raised in Zoom. Oh, we do?
We just had a hand go up. Yes, Mr. Nishimura.
Please, Mr. Nishimura. Is he unmuted? Guess he put his hand down.
Thank you. No, I was muted. I had some audio problems and had to exit and re-enter the webinar. No, I was just going to comment. I think someone was saying nobody else had comments about the distribution hardness. I know that was a topic earlier this meeting. Yeah, I do concur that the water hardness throughout the district is on average, really good. It's not as low as it has been in the past. Partly looks like due to the slightly harder water actually coming from SFPUC. I see it's at 36 when it's typically down in the teens. My question really and comment really has to do not with the distribution hardness nor the rainfall report. I mean, I do concur that the rain in this year has been rather remarkable. But really on the other pages in the report, which have to do with the actual groundwater level and our ability to recharge our groundwater, our aquifer through our recharge facilities. And my question really is how quickly can we recharge those ponds? That is, how many acre feet, I don't know what the correct unit is, cubic feet per second or acre feet per day or whatever you want to use, can we actually push through our recharge ponds, the quarry lakes and associated infrastructure, and get that groundwater reservoir recharged? So that's my question for today. Thank you.
I can tell you it depends. It depends really on the delta, the condition of the existing groundwater levels, what facilities are available and so forth. But I'll ask Ms. Heides to provide any additional flavor if you can.
Sure, and there's a little bit of art and a little bit of science to all of it. We can move, a few hundred CFS at a time, depending on conditions, into the lakes. What I can tell you is we've put a lot of water into quarry lakes these last couple of weeks. We've been really glad to be able to do that. So we are actually at about 34.8, I think, feet, which is full. So 35 feet is our maximum elevation, 35 feet above sea level. And so we've got about 300 acres of ponds out there, and there's lots of water that's been put in. So, it does take time for the water to percolate into the ground. So we won't necessarily see the result of the last 2 weeks of moving water right away. It'll take a little while for it to percolate into the ground over the next few months. So as the quarry lake's water level goes down and the groundwater level comes up. So, but we do think we've put a few thousand acre feet in there that's still going to be continuing to percolate just even in this short amount of time. So that's the good news. And we're hopeful that's going to make a dent in our groundwater levels and the drought.
Well, I'm not one of the experts here, but I would like to add to what you're saying. We had an excellent presentation at our water operations and water quality committee meeting 2 days ago, led by Kurt Aronson, Mr. Aronson, his team, Mike Wickham. And so Director Gunther and I were asking similar questions, and we were informed that actually with all the water that was coming down through the canyon, it's so dirty, so much silt in it and turbidity that it makes it actually very difficult at this time to divert water into our percolation ponds. It's a ironic twist to where we stand when we're receiving so much water, but we actually can't deposit it because there's so much silt in it.
Yes, and with just the last couple of weeks, it's settled down. So we've been fortunate to be able to divert and put some in the lakes.
Mm-hmm.
I was riding on barge on Monday and took pictures of the quarry pits, and I've never seen them fuller.
Yeah, they're high.
It's right. I don't think we could put any more water in if we wanted to. Well, actually, if we put it into a certain level, it overflows and goes into the old Alameda Creek. It's pretty much maxed out, right? Okay.
Let's move on. We have we're on our final lap here. We've got one staff presentation and then some reports. So we'll turn it over to the general manager here.
Sure. Thank you, President Sethy. And, we thought we would do something a little bit different today. We all know here on the board and staff about the rules that pertain to public meetings and how public participation and board participation is managed in the law and so forth. And we are aware of changes over the last couple of years. But some of this the public doesn't get to see very much. So we're pleased to do a real brief presentation on, as Ms. Marcoux kind of pulling it up here, real brief presentation on those changes that have occurred recently. And then and another change that's coming up soon that'll kind of provide us with options for remote participation in public meetings by a board of directors. That is as long as the technology allows for remote participation in public meetings. And your general counsel and I decided that this topic is so cool and fun that we kind of did a arm wrestling contest to see who got to deliver it, and we just tied. Neither one of us could beat the other. So we decided, well, we'll just split it then and we'll tag team. But I did get my way such that I present the easy part, and the part that's more complex, Mr. Miyake has volunteered to present that part. Okay. Oh, it's not. You're right. It is not. Really? Okay. From my perspective, it looks like the video and everything's working, but it looks like maybe what controls aren't working on your side. Well, Mr. President, if it's okay with you, maybe we'll just take a couple of minutes break to see if we can work out some technical gremlins. I meant couple of second break. All right. Thank you, Gina. Good job. I can see it. Yep. Okay. So this will be a quick review of some changes to the Brown Act that pertain to director participation in public meetings. That's board meetings, committee meetings, via teleconferencing. So as we all know, we're currently conducting meetings that are compliant with AB 361. And AB 361 was legislation that was signed by the governor in September of 2021 that provided for the ability to teleconference into public meetings. And that was done as a result of COVID and the need to social distance and to ensure that everybody could participate, even though we weren't able to get together physically. We've been operating our meetings in compliance with AB 361 since that time. We've been reaffirming resolutions related to AB 361 in each board meeting. We did another one this evening. And so that provides for the public and the board to be able to participate remotely. And as it stands right now, we have, and it's one of those blessings of COVID, I think, we've really been leveraging technology and have kept our board meetings such that public can participate remotely, regardless as to how the board's participating. So we've kept our meetings hybrid, and I think that's something that's really great. But as a reminder, AB 361 only applies if there's a proclaimed state of emergency, right? It was in reaction to the emergency declaration, the need to social distance. So it only applies during a proclaimed state of emergency, and state or local officials have imposed or recommended social distancing measures. And so there's a number of provisions that go along with that. But basically, those are the two main conditions upon which AB 361 or such that you could use AB 361. So here's the kicker. Governor Newsom has indicated that his declaration of emergency related to COVID, he'll be rescinding that at the end of this month. And so once the emergency declaration has been rescinded, then we can't use AB 361 as a basis for participating in public meetings. When I say we, the board of directors can't use AB 361 as a basis of participating. Mr. Wheat.
Quick question. If Alameda County Health Department declares an emergency, would that also, would that give us cover?
Like if the state rescinded their declaration, but the county, somebody else had a declaration?
The answer is no. The statute AB 361 is part of the Brown Act, and the Brown Act says that it's a California state declared state of emergency.
Thank you.
But the second prong could be related to county health officials and social distancing, and that's the second prong. But once the governor declares the COVID state of emergency over, then AB 61 can.
Thank you.
Right, and both those conditions have to exist. So once the state declaration goes away. Okay, so that means that not be an avenue to be able to participate remotely in board meetings. So that leaves two options for continued participation via teleconference. Option one is to simply fall back to the existing Brown Act rules, which didn't go away. They're still there. That have to do with remote participation by directors in public meetings. We'll take a quick look at that. Option two is the new addition here to the options. Option two is to make use of AB 2449, and that's legislation that recently took effect, and that offers additional options. And so I'll quickly talk about option one, and again, Pat will talk about the more complicated option two. Okay, so option one, this is really a reminder because the board's, I think, very familiar with the pre-existing pre-COVID teleconferencing rules. Basically, to use these rules, each location that a director is participating from via teleconference, that physical location has to be identified on the meeting notice, and it has to be on the agenda for the meeting. And that agenda has to be posted at each teleconference location. So if a director is participating from, say, Washington, D.C., because they're away on business, then you've got to, if you're going to participate under these rules, you've got to ensure that we know about your location, that we post that location in the notice and the agenda, and that you post the agenda at that location, and that location has to be open and accessible to the public, and the public has to be able to participate. They have to be allowed to enter the place where you're participating in the meeting. Also, a quorum of the board has to be participating from locations within the boundary of the agency, so within our service area. And then all votes are by roll call. So that's the easy one. And so to do the hard one, I'll turn it over to Pat, option two.
Great, thank you. And for those who are want to really get into the weeds of this, all you need to do is look at Government Code section 54953. And it got much longer over the last 2 years because it was amended to address AB 361, and now it's been amended to address AB 2449. And if you go to it, there'll be different versions of it, because when AB 361 goes away at the end of the year, then the statute automatically gets amended to just have AB 2449. And for those in the audience, I've noticed I've turned my microphone over to here to look at the board, because these rules really apply to you, board members. The district has set this up in a way to where there can be participation by the public remotely. So that's going to be, those portions of the statute are going to be set up already for board meetings. And so what I'm going to walk through in the next, notice your general manager had 1 page. The next 5 pages are going to be talking about the AB 2449 rules. And they became effective January 1, 2023. So they're brand new. It was kind of a rushed statute. So that's why it's complex, is because there was a vision that AB 361 would go away at some point, and the legislature wanted to have some mechanism for board members to continue to participate remotely, but wanted to outline some of those conditions for them. So here are the rules. Number 1, a quorum of the legislative body must participate in person from a singular physical location clearly identified on the agenda, which is open to the public within the district jurisdiction. And by the way, at the end of this, there's going to be a quick summary to compare the pre-existing rules and the AB 2449 rules. So really what that means for us is that for board meetings, the singular location will be right here, this boardroom. Number 2, the directors participating remotely must participate through both audio and visual technology. So this is one of the changes from the pre-COVID rules. You could just call in. Now you have to, and this is a change from the AB 361 rules, you have to have both audio and visual. So under 361, if your camera didn't work, it was totally okay to just have the audio. Under AB 2449, audio and visual. The next two are already part of AB 361, and these are going to be met. The public must be able to participate in the meeting by a two-way audio-visual platform or two-way telephonic service and live webcasting for meetings, already set up for this, and must give notice by means of which members of the public may access the meeting remotely and offer public comment in real time. And that's in all your agendas. So that those two will be met. All right. Thank you, Tina. In the event of a disruption in remote participation, the legislative body shall take no further action on the agenda items until access is restored. So if there's any technology glitch, you got to stop, be sure it's fixed before we move on. And this is also new, a director who participates remotely must publicly disclose at the meeting before any action is taken whether any individuals over 18 years are present in the room at the remote location with the director and the general relationship of that individual to the director. And that may get a little clearer when we go into the basis for when you can participate remotely. And then like other teleconferencing rules, all action must be taken by roll call vote. So the limitations. So a director can participate in a meeting remotely only for two reasons: just cause or emergency circumstances. And there's a slide on each of those. We'll go over in a minute. And the director may not use just cause or emergency circumstances teleconferencing combined for more than 3 consecutive months or 20% of meetings, which for us is whether it's a board meeting or standing committee, that means no more than 2 meetings per calendar year. So pick and choose when you're gonna use this mechanism for participating remotely. Okay, so for just cause, what does that mean? Just cause, and by the way, this is all right in the statute. So just cause may only be used for childcare or caregiving need of a child, parent, grandparent, sibling, spouse, or domestic partner that requires remote participation, a contagious illness that prevents attending in person, a need related to physical or mental disability, or travel while on official business of the district or another state or local agency. And I know some of the directors have actually used that during the AB 361 times to participate remotely. So that's a basis for it under just cause.
But personal travel is excluded from this.
Correct. This is official business of the district or another state or local agency. So for example, if you are at the Aqua East conference as it's referred to in Washington, DC, and we happen to have a board meeting, that would be a basis if you're traveling there on district business and want to participate remotely, you could use the just cause exception to do that. To participate remotely due to just cause, the director must notify the legislative body as soon as possible. And this can be done, including at the start of the meeting, of the need to participate remotely. And there's a bullet here that says no formal action of the board is necessary because that's different. Because under the next basis, which is the next slide, emergency circumstances, it does require board action. So emergency circumstances may only be used for physical or family emergency that prevents attending in person. To participate remotely due to emergency circumstances, the director must request approval by the legislative body, must provide a general description of the circumstances relating to the need to appear remotely, don't need to disclose any medical information, medical diagnosis, or any personal medical information. And the legislative body must take action to approve the request before the remote director may participate remotely under this emergency circumstances exception. We would take action at the beginning of the meeting before discussion of any item in accordance with a statute, which is basically how you would take action even though it's not on the agenda, because this statute allows it. And if there's time and the directors knows in advance, it'd be great to let us know so that we could actually put it on the agenda. But it's not necessary. And the last AB 2449 slide is, does this apply to the standing committees as well? And the answer is yes. And the limitations on the number of times you can treat each standing committee separate as a separate legislative body and separate from the board meeting, so that the 2 meetings per year can apply to board meetings and standing committee meetings as well.
Pat, real quick, a question on that. How do you establish quorum on a 2-member standing committee if one person is remote?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I think that the answer is, if you have a 2-member standing committee and one member is actually in there, it's technically not a quorum because you need a full member.
Right.
But if these exceptions apply, I think we could try it. It's one of the flaws, I think, in the statute is they don't really think through. There's other flaws in the statute as well. But I think that this is how we could interpret it reasonably until there's some clarifying things. And by the way, there's talk that there will be, and there's talk in the legislature that there may be amendments to this statute because there's some talk that some legislators just aren't happy with the way this statute is drafted. So that there may be changes along the way.
Okay, thank you.
Revocation.
And then I'm going to kick it back to your general manager. And obviously after the summary, we're happy to answer any other questions that the board might have.
This also applies to closed sessions as well, but then you have to eliminate anyone else in the room, correct?
Correct. So, we have closed sessions at regular board meetings. This would apply to that. And we would have to take the same precautions for closed sessions that only essential people and no members of the public participate. So that is correct.
Over 18. All right, thank you.
Actually, I have another question. So if we have to disclose any individuals that are over 18 that are present in the room, how's that defined? Is it just within the room that you are in, or like if you're in a house, does it apply to everyone in the house? Or if you're in a hotel, does it apply to everyone in the hotel? Like where do I draw the lines here?
That's a great question. I would interpret it to be anybody who is in the room that's participating in the meeting, so that, or that's not participating in the meeting, but can observe and hear what's going on. You would disclose there. So if you're an example in a 2-story house, again, this is my interpretation, you're down in one room and there's people upstairs who have no idea that there's a board meeting going on and you're participating because they can't hear or they're not part of it. I don't think you need to disclose them.
Okay, thank you.
And again, to the risk of dancing on the head of a pin, when you're using a cell phone walking through a public space, that would be something that we would look the other way, or is there actually a prohibition?
That's a great question. And actually, the Director of Finance raised this question with me just yesterday. And that's something I'm going to look into. I'm not 100% sure the answer for that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as agencies grapple with this new option, I think there'll be lots of questions that will come up and lots of different investigations as to how these things ought to be interpreted.
I have participated in the past on a meeting at on a BART train. Makes it a little more interesting.
It's tough to post the location of that on the. So this last slide is just kind of a little comparison. It's actually really kind of a study guide to help you all prepare for the exam on the topic. But it's handy and really kind of pointing out the differences between the two. Now, again, these are both available to you. Won't go through in tons of detail, but comparing the two, if you look at the pre-COVID rules, the remote locations have to be identified on the agenda, and they have to be accessible to the public under the pre-COVID rules and not under AB 2449 rules. The agenda has to be posted at the remote location under the pre-COVID rules, but not under the AB 2449 rules. But that's where the sort of simplicity of AB 2449 kind of stops, and then the pre-COVID rules become simpler in terms of these other factors, requirements for in-person board participation, there's no requirement that there be directors participate in person. Whereas under 2449, the quorum has to participate from a single physical location in person. In terms of giving reasons for why a director is participating remotely, no reasons required under the pre-COVID rules, but as Mr. Miyake pointed out, the director would need to state the reason that they're participating remotely. It has to meet certain criteria. And if the director is relying on the emergency circumstances reason for participating remotely, that has to be approved by the board. And then,
oh, sorry.
Just quickly wrapping up here. Under the pre-COVID rules, there's no requirement to disclose the people who are present at the remote location, wherever that location is. Whereas under the 2449 rules, one would need to do that, and also describe the general relationship between that person or people to the director. And under the pre-COVID rules, there's no limits on the number of times you can participate remotely like that. Whereas under AB 2449, really, there's only 2 opportunities to participate via those rules for each meeting type per year. So it's kind of limited in terms of how often you can use those rules.
Can we flip back and forth? Can we selectively apply AB 2449 for some meetings and the pre-COVID rules for other meetings?
Yes.
So the combination really, we can avoid the whole limitation issue entirely.
You could, as long as you use the pre-COVID rules, which is your general manager summarized. We need to know in advance. We need to put the location on the agenda. You need to have the location that you're participating from open to the public. You need to post the agenda at the remote location. So as long as you follow those rules, yeah, there's no limit. And you can use either one of these options if you're going to participate remotely.
It strikes me for AB 2249, you would have to include that on the agenda. For the pre-COVID rules, you possibly need not have that stated on the agenda that someone would be remote.
Wait, I think you've got it reversed.
So,
The pre-COVID rules, you have to have the remote location on the agenda.
Okay.
The AB 2449 rules, you do not, but it would be a good idea if you know you're not going to participate, then we can have it on the agenda, even if we're using 2449.
But it's not a requirement. We can make that determination at the beginning of the meeting.
Under 2449, you can make the determination at the beginning of the meeting.
Exactly.
Under pre-COVID rules, you have to let us know in advance so it can be posted on the agenda. So you can't just do it at the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Miyake, wouldn't it be better for the district to adopt one consistent policy like pre-COVID rules? Because we're communicating with the public, and I think to have consistency would be very important. So we're not flip-flopping from one meeting to another and even between committee meetings. Seems like the board should adopt a consistent policy of what they're following.
Yeah, I think that would be up to the board if as a policy matter you wanted to do it. What we've outlined today is what the law allows. And the law allows either of these options. And you can use either one of these options at different meetings. But if the board wants to adopt a policy, as you're suggesting, that could be something the board could do. Not
Could we
legally
put it
required.
on the agenda for next month for discussion so that I think it would be a nightmare for the public to see us flip-flopping, choosing one side or the other, when most of the public doesn't even understand these elements of the Brown Act.
Yeah, I mean, we can put an item on the agenda. One thing I would point out is this does give you extra flexibility, and from the public's perspective, they may not see much of a difference. What's really the biggest differences are how you guys comply with these 2 sets of rules. So it may look pretty much the same to the public, but you would have to ensure that you're meeting the rules that apply to either of these situations. But if the board wants to adopt a policy that adopts one approach, that's perfectly okay. You would just lose some of the flexibility that's provided by the other approach.
Well, may I suggest that the AB 2449 can be used as almost the fail-safe. So if if something happens, you don't have time to put it on the agenda, you can still have a meeting. Our standard course could be the pre-COVID, but we still have the option to, and under unusual circumstances, to have the additional flexibility where we don't have that 3 to 5, 72-hour notice that a member will have to report, be remote.
I see a hand up from a member of the public, Mr. Nishimura. Love to hear your comments on this.
Yeah, as a member of the public, I think I sort of reiterate or echo what Mr. Stevenson said. For me, what matters is, a consistent means to participate remotely. And the district has done a very good job of, settling on the Zoom platform. And I can participate at the board meetings or a committee meeting by, pretty much a pretty consistent user interface. And it seems like as long as the public is presented with a very similar Zoom interface, regardless of whether you're using the pre-COVID rules or the AB 2449 rules, it doesn't matter to the public. I do not anticipate members of the public trying to attend a meeting under the pre-COVID rules at a remote location. It seems unwieldy, right? The public is going to want to participate remotely, and therefore, as long as the district keeps the same user experience as they have right now, I think it is agnostic whether the district or a particular meeting is held under the pre-COVID rules or under the AB 2449 rules. Thanks.
Thank you for the input. Any other board comments there? Okay, why don't we move on to the general manager's reports?
Okay, well, just real quickly.
Thank you for the presentation, by the way.
Real quickly, wanted to let the board know that we're going to be hosting a community informational meeting on the PFAS treatment project that's coming up quickly. Of course, the project is at the blending facility. So right nearby, we're going to host that public informational meeting. It'll be in person at the Christ the King Lutheran Church. Can't read my own writing. On Tuesday, the 21st at 6:30 p.m. That's at 1301 Maury. That's right at where Maury and Peralta meet. It's right near the blending facility, kind of across the intersection there from the blending facility. So look for more information to come on that. Mr. Owok will be providing more information by email, but I just want to kind of give you that heads up. You can just mark your calendar. And then finally, for me, I'll be away from the office beginning tomorrow and then through next week. I'll be returning on that same Tuesday, the 21st. So when I get back, I'll head down to the community meeting on the PFAS treatment project. And then while I'm away, Mr. Wunderlich will be the acting general manager.
We have a 3 p.m. finance committee on Tuesday, the 21st. Might we want to shift that to a later time?
We hope to be done long before the 6:30 p.m. Community meeting.
Is it 6:30? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I misspoke. It is 6:30 p.m. is the community meeting.
I'm sorry.
Any other PM
That is
reports?
it for me.
Okay, so we'll move on to director's comments, reports. Director Huang, do you have anything? I know Director Weed and I do.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Director Akbari? Gunther, okay. So John, do you mind if I go first?
Please.
Okay, try to be quick here. So there is an opening on the LAFCO board, which is typically assigned to president of the board or somebody representing ACWD. So I'm handing this off to Mr. Stevenson to bring this back to the board because we may want to appoint somebody.
Which
Yes.
board was that again?
So this is LAFCO, Alameda County LAFCO. This is hot off the press. And as President Sethy points out, we'll talk about it at the next board meeting. But we'll have two things to do with this. One is as one of the agencies that's represented by the LAFCO Commission, we actually have the ability to send one of our members to go vote for their process to appoint members of the commission. In this case, there is a vacancy on the special district, one of the special district slots on the commission. So one thing we need to do is appoint somebody to go vote, cast our vote if we choose. Second thing we need to do is consider whether one of you all would like to, one or more of you all would like to run for that position. There'll be more information coming out on this and we will address it at the next board meeting.
Yeah, okay, great. So quickly, before I go and see the reports here, for the State Legislative Committee for Aqua, both Director Weed and I went up to Sacramento. It was an in-person only meeting for the entire state. There were about 80 people there. And I'll pass this down here. Our legislative proposal for service charges on the property tax bill with a full historical analysis, legislative analysis was presented for the second time to the State Legislative Committee. Of all the topics here, we met for 2 hours. 1/3 of the entire time period was spent just on this proposal. So we received feedback that, except for a handful of people felt that this would really be good policy for the state of California and for the water industry. But they decided, because they, and you can see here that we have some other aqua legislative priorities, and they'd like to see those go into the first half of this year, into the legislative hopper. So we are deferring on this until October. And during that period of time, we will be looking for some bill sponsors. See where that move forwards. But on one hand, it was really positive. I was a little discouraged that we couldn't move it further, but you can take a look at some of the other things that every other item made it through except for that one. And then at the South Bay Engineers Club, where we had a lot of people from that were municipal engineers at this particular meeting, we were reviewing the California Subdivision Map Act, which, as you know, pretty much rules everything on your planning commissions and city councils. And so we got an update that we hadn't had for, I think, since prior to COVID. And I'll summarize by saying that the attorney who reviewed all these different cases, and Patrick, we can pass on the document from the other law firm, very comprehensive, is in the aggregate, most of the changes that are being made are reflective of all the new legislation on high density housing and ADUs. And so I'm going to put forward a request again that we try to put together a task force. This is coming out of the last Aqua that we were at early December. Mr. Stevenson, you were there with me at that one particular meeting. We need a task force of ACWD, Union Sanitary District, and the 3 cities to come up with a common set of ordinances that everybody can play by, and that the development community and residences can go down to their planning department and have some consistent set of rules. I'll let Director Weed give his own interpretation there on that. I also wanted to inform the board, I was reappointed as treasurer of the LVE Joint Power Authority last month. And I was appointed the chair of the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority. And there was a lot of politicking going on, as Mr. Stevenson knows, behind the scenes. The big heavyweights in the state were trying to muscle their way in at the last minute, including at midnight, the day before I was appointed. So, but we did end up with a unanimous vote. So I was very appreciative of that. And of course, you know, this is the largest project in the country, finance-wise. And I will be in Yosemite for the next few days. And then I will be returning and make a quick turnaround to go up to Cal DSAL next Thursday and Friday up in Sacramento. Director Weed. That's my reports.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
First,
Sorry. Driving?
are you driving a job?
Oh, no. Because I'm coming back from Yosemite and he's already gonna be headed out.
I thought you guys were going to be going up there again without air
Oh,
conditioning.
no. John and I had a great trip up to the state legislative committee because we decided to make a trip coming back through the Delta. And we ended up in Rio Vista in front of City Hall, where the width of the river is just a foot and a half from the entry to the doorway of City Hall and the police department. So.
And yes, they do have sandbags next to the door of the city hall. Okay. So my two items, or several items. First of all, I attended the JPIA Risk Management Committee, which I'm on, which was on the 30th of January, and then stayed over one night and to attend the executive committee of the 31st of the JPIA. I hope to be a candidate again for the executive committee. The 4 resolutions, your own district plus 3 others, must be in place by March 24th, received by the JPIA. So it has set as an agenda item of the consent of the board that I be nominated for that at our next regular board meeting. Can we just consent that? The state legislative committee meeting on the proposal for placing bills on a property tax statement is a matter of I'd say unstated concern on the part of some individuals. And I would suggest that we would not count on Aqua to lead this fight, but rather to find a legislator that can put it in the system and get it started. It may well be that the Law Revision Commission, it may be the best way to clarify the language of the 100-year-old health and safety code, which was drafted before they even had chlorination, and the word sanitation could be expanded, or the words water. I think the intent that the water districts and water treatment be included in that definition. On the SFA Engineers Club meeting, it struck me that really finally came home to me that the effect of some of the state legislature on removing any guidance and controls of local agencies leaves us with the inability to use the city planning guidelines with any reliability or confidence. And it may be in the best interest of the water district to build into our designs additional capacity over what we've done historically. it was noted that in the city of Fremont, and to guidance with this, I've noted in the past that they have removed the number of units per development or units per acre and replaced it with a floor area ratio in transit-oriented developments, which the Water District noted that we do have a dormitory rate. But a dormitory versus a normal apartment building may require additional water because of the much greater density in people in the buildings. When you apply that to a fairly large area, your density and your water, your population projections may no longer be valid. We've encountered that in the past. We've seen populations increase dramatically in the district, and from single-family residences to multifamily is a different world. Single-family residence development has the same water usage as an acre per acre of agriculture. That's not true if you go multifamily. So those are the quick comments. Just take it back. Thank you. So we have comments from Director Akbari.
Yeah, if I can
Director
just,
Huang too.
if I can just make a quick comment. So I think a lot of us know that Alameda County Supervisor Richard Valle passed away yesterday, and just wanted to make a quick comment in our open session here that not only was he a great personal friend of mine, but he was also a great friend of the district and was never shy to work with us on issues relating to Alameda Creek and other issues that we brought to him and to his office. And so I'm remembering him fondly and remembering a lot of the work that he did in our community. And he was really one of those champions of Alameda County that we're really going to miss.
Just to add to that, Director Akbari, I fully support your comments, and Richard was a friend. We agreed that we would close our meeting formally in memory of him, so it is on the record, and maybe later on we can pass a resolution to that effect. But you're certainly very right. So, and we do want it noted in the minutes, please. Are there any questions or last minute comments from the public before we adjourn the meeting? Don't see any. Any last minute comments from staff? Oh, okay, then we will conclude the meeting at 9:08 p.m. February 9th. Everybody have a nice evening. And travel good safe.